Guys, welcome to Q. Nice to see you.
Great to see you, man.
Yeah, man, it's been a while.
Well, I was going to say you have had an amazing career so far. You've done incredible work, worldwide acclaim, sold out shows, and you decided to risk it all by working with a banjo player.
It's really on brand with what we're doing these days. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I'm so, things were going so well, and you said, how can I mess this up a little bit? Bring Tom in.
Oh,
Jokes aside, it was lovely to play with you guys and to see how your creative experience works. And then I didn't know at the time you guys were still a Tribe Called Red when we were working on that thing. And then I got the note one day that you guys had changed the name. So Tim, I'll go to you on this. Why the name change?
it's we've been living with that name since 2014, 15. You know what I mean? Like you ever since we got the poem from John Trudell when our last album began like wrapping up. It was kind of the final pieces to the puzzle on the album, and even how we got that poem was kind of what do you call that? A series of events, and it just landed in our lap, and it became our identity going forward almost immediately.
And Bear, I'll go to you on this. I mean, it's a bit different for you. I mean, you've been with a Tribe Called Red since the very beginning. What's it like for you to leave that name behind?
It's actually a really amazing feeling. It's this feeling of growth and newness. Like more than a decade into my career with Tribe to be able to reinvent what we're doing and to have, everything that happened up until this point really birth what the Halluci Nation is now.
I got to imagine. So like, I got to imagine there might be a bit of sadness, though. It's been so much part of your identity for so long.
Um, like in the same way that maybe there's sadness of growing out of your favorite T-shirt growing up or something, like it feels like an evolution. So yeah, I'm not really sad about it. I'm excited. I'm super excited. We did one show already this year, an outdoor show, and one of the reports back from our tour manager was, Bear, you were smiling and really having fun through the whole show. And I think that really is what this whole evolution has brought to us is a newness, is a new excitement for what we're doing.
Well, let's listen to a little bit of what you've been doing. The album is called One More Saturday Night. Let's just play some tracks while we talk. Song called Land Back featuring Boogie the Beat and Northern Voice. It's off the new album by the Halluci Nation, formerly known as Tribe Called Red. Bear, I want to stay with you on this because you called this album a love letter to the Electric Pow Wow gatherings you threw in Ottawa back in '07. Legendary events. Tell me a little bit about them, and then, as much as you possibly can remember, tell me a memory of that time.
Yeah, that time was definitely a certain magic that happened. And when it started out, we were really just four DJs who had other club nights. So we were just playing the kind of music that we played in all these different clubs. Even though we had been putting up posters at the Native Students Association and around places where we knew the Indigenous community would see it here in Ottawa, we were still just playing our, club music to people. And there was a moment when it actually wasn't, we hadn't started remixing powwow music yet. It was another song by another group who had sampled powwow. And I had heard powwow sampled into hip hop and into electronic music here and there over the years, but very rarely, if ever, by an Indigenous group. And that was the same thing with this song. But for some reason, this song, it didn't seem like a negative appropriation. It didn't set up those sensors in our heads. So we started playing it as a way to kind of test the waters to see how our crowd would react to it. And when we played that song, like all of the native people in the club like jumped up onto the dance floor and like owned the dance floor and came up to the front of the stage. And there was this, there can be a real feeling sometimes where Indigenous people don't like to take up too much space or don't like to be in the center of something. It's just a feeling that I've noticed a lot. And to watch the community come up and take over the dance floor and represent it set off like a total firework of like, okay, like people are ready for this, people want to see this. So that's really what led us to start sampling power music and the first mashups that we did.
And when did you know well, I guess that was it. When I was going to say, when did you know it started taking off? But that's when people started going to the front, when people started having that visceral reaction to the music,
Yeah. And then once we started touring, seeing that like everywhere we went was like, that was the fuel. That was the fuel for the early years, was just like, okay, people are feeling this. People are taking up space in a way that we haven't seen before.
And Tim, like, you weren't in the group at this point. You were making your own career as a rising name in hip hop production. What was this like for you to see from the outside?
I remember the first time I heard Electric Pow Wow. It was kind of like a wow moment, like I was in a studio and a friend of mine came up and like, hey, you need to listen to this, and slid it to me, and we played it over the sound system there at the studio, and it was crazy. And it was just kind of like, okay, this is where we are now. This is awesome. And like Bear said, like, I've heard it done before, but like it just felt special this time around when hearing it, how it did. And when I went and saw my first show, that was kind of the moment where I understood the importance of what the group was doing, and like watching the people in the crowd looking up at the DJ booth and seeing these guys lighting up, and there was just this energy there that you could tell that it was needed. It was needed. Like I wanted to see that continue. It was that important.
Why was it so important to you to be a part of it?
That kind of energy, I just never felt that before. I never felt the presentation. I never felt that kind of representation. Although, like we all grew up with like Buffy and John Trudell, it was giving off those kind of vibes, but in a sound that I can relate to, and I can appreciate, being a beat maker and a fan of electronic music.
Bear, what did Tim bring to the group when he joined?
Tim has an amazing ability to as a collaborator, as a producer who works with artists and other producers. And that's something that I saw from him from the very first time we got into the studio together. Before he joined the group, we were doing a project in Winnipeg where Tim was living at the time, and with another group, Oka from Australia. And Tim just came in to be a part of the project. And the way that he just jumped right into the middle of all of us and was able to draw out, the best from all of us, as just like that. I saw that ability in him right away. And I remember thinking like, we need this. We need this in this group. We need this to continue on this journey in the way that we saw it growing. There was really that ability.
And Tim, sorry, go ahead, please go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and I thought I was just inviting myself. I'm like, oh, you're going to be here. All right, I'll show up there. And I never left.
Oh, yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah.
I meant to tell you, Tim, this is an intervention right now. Yeah. But it actually does bring up a good point, Tim, that like, I mean, it goes without saying that you guys, there's been other members of this group and all this, and the band has gone on throughout the years. But a band and a collective is a hard thing to keep making work. It takes more than just musical ability. It takes more than just like compatibility in terms of the music you make. What's been the key to the relationship between the two of you guys to keep this thing going?
Oh, well, that's the big thing. It's the compatibility, I think, is the big thing. You see, I grew up on Six Nations, and I was lucky to like grow up with in a household that like taught my language and my culture. So I grew up with a really strong kind of foundation of that. And then like I learned music as almost like a rebellious thing, like it was something that really wasn't being done. I just kind of did it and I really loved it. I never thought that one day that my skill set from, you know, being community minded and as far as culturally and everything. And then I kept my career as a hip hop producer separate from all of this. And it was like one of the moments where I was able to like put it all together. And now it's kind of like where we are right now. Me and Bear are like these two entities that seem to have grown around each other, and now we're kind of formed this one being. And it's all kind of under the foundation of like morals, traditions, protocols. Like we understand these things coming up as an Indigenous person growing up, like how important these things are. And those are big deals to us. And it kind of gauges how we do things.
It's a beautiful story. Sorry, go ahead. Please, Bear, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think one of the major differences was actually in your question. And in the earlier days of A Tribe Called Red, we were a collective. And it was really, really important for me that we were a collective because of the kind of relationships we had that weren't necessarily super close. We had all just come together, that it was important to me that everybody had their voice in what we were doing. That's not as important anymore. Now we're a band. We are, like Tim said, two people who have grown into each other. Very like especially over the past year, like we've developed a whole deeper relationship with one another because there was times where we're the only person that we saw. You know, we still kept on getting together to work on music through this whole past year. So, you know, that relationship has only grown so much deeper. And yeah, so like I really feel like now we are a band. We can just say we are the Halluci Nation now because our voices are together.
That's beautiful. Let's do some more music.
As long as there have been human beings, the human beings have gathered in the summers and at different times of the year to celebrate being human beings. And so to me, this is kind of a form of that, what's happening in this technological, digital reality that we're in. So it's good to see that everyone's bringing their energy here in a way that's really about celebrating and feeling good. You know, so this is the part of the kind of reality that our reality needs, this kind of healing. Well, as long as I'm up here, you know, we're on the subject. Human beings, right? Because most of you are not my generation. I came out of the generation that did whatever we did in our own way to try to make things better for your generation. There were accomplishments and then there were things that weren't really quite accomplished and they've been left kind of fuzzy and hazy and things, I think, still. But one thing that I think is important, we remember that we're human beings, that we recognize ourselves as human beings, because that's the reality of who we are.
That is Remember. It's off the new album from the Halluci Nation, formerly A Tribe Called Red. I'm Tom Power. This is Q. Speaking with the band members, Bear Witness and Toolman, about the new album called One More Saturday Night. Bear, tell me what we just heard.
Yeah, that was John Trudell, taken from an iPhone video I took from the night that we met. John had been there for Indian Market and wanted to meet us, and we just kind of got this message that John Trudell was in town and he wanted to sit down and wanted to introduce us that night. Yeah, and so that first meeting was nothing less than amazing. Like you meeting a hero who walks up and, you know, you want to do that like hero thing where you're like, oh my God, I've been listening to you all my life. Well, and he like shut that down before it even got started. He knew my name already and just launched into telling me what our music meant to him. And yeah, it was one of the most affirming experiences I had ever had, having somebody who, you know, you hold in such high regard tell you that you're doing it right.
That's beautiful. Tim, you touched on this a little bit earlier about how John kind of gave you guys the name. I don't want to use the word here, but like kind of gave you guys the name, the Halluci Nation. He threw like several steps of getting the poem. Can you tell, like, as much as you want to, sort of that story about how John helped you guys become the Halluci Nation?
But that day that Bear's talking about that night, he started reading off poetry and was kind of like saying, like, could you guys work with this? Could you guys work with this? Could you guys work with this? And that was kind of a relationship that John and Bear created that night. And when it came down to working together, he wanted to give us a poem. So that was kind of like the sense of it. And he was filming something. I don't recall what he was filming at the time, but someone recorded using the video camera microphone, and he recorded this poem called "The Tribe Called Red." And he sent over this rough draft, and we're kind of like, this is awesome. This will work here, and we'll work with it going forward. And he's like, all right, I'm going to go to a recording studio, and I'm going to record this. So we went to a recording studio like a month later, cut some vocals. He cut that poem, and then he's like, oh, and I threw something extra for you at the end, like another couple pieces. And those couple pieces ended up being the intro and the outro for the Halluci Nation. We Are the Halluci Nation, the album. So it's like, but when we heard it, we were just like, this is the one.
One thing that Tim didn't tell you there was that those two poems, the first one that we ended up not using was called "The Tribe Called Red," and the second one that we ended up using was called "The Halluci Nation." So there's this real feeling, especially now. I don't think we noticed it as much at the time, but now we're realizing that it feels like John had a plan, and he set a plan in motion, and it's still unraveling. And, that's also why we started the album with that recording and his voice from that night, because when we listen to, especially the end of that, Remember, he's talking to us now in this moment more than he was talking to us then. And we found our own way to change our name to A Tribe Called Red, and then turned around and saw that we just followed the path that John laid out.
Just the idea of progression with you guys is very, very interesting to me. Like when you look at the beginning of your career, and Barry, you said to me earlier, we were just club DJs. We were playing clubs. We were DJing. We were trying to get people to dance. Things started to change. And then I think a lot of your fans, or at least some of your fans, would see you guys who have, as a band that has, if not a political side to them, then a side to them that it's important to you to speak about things that matter to you. When did that start to change? When did those two things start to change?
As soon as we had our first interview, like right away, it was just the questions around Indigenous politics and Indigenous identity and culture started as soon as the first newspaper took us out to an alleyway to photograph us in front of graffiti.
And was that welcome?
It was. I remember it being a moment. It was a moment of okay, what are we going to do with this? And I mean, for me, I come from a background of artists, and all of my family, their art has always revolved around identity and culture and exploring, what it means to be an urban Indigenous person. And so for me, I was just like, okay, this is what we can talk about. And that it was just that choice of are we going to do this or aren't we going to do this? And I think the conversation when we actually had it was, okay, we can't not do this, because the reason that we're getting attention, the reason this newspaper is writing about us, is because we used our culture in our music. We've been DJs. At that point, I've been DJing for 20 years. And, nobody had ever taken as much interest in what I was doing until we were using powwow music. So if our culture is what brought us here, then we have a responsibility to our culture.
But I guess what's been on my mind recently is the effect of that responsibility a little bit. Is that even when I was talking to you guys, and I know you guys pretty well at this point, and I knew we were coming into this interview, and we were talking a lot about, of course, the discovery of the remains of these children, these babies at residential schools across the country. And I guess the question that lingered in my head, Bear, and I'll go to you on this, if you're comfortable with this. If you don't want to talk about it at all, we don't have to do it at all. But the question that lingered in my head is, what's it like to grieve and feel that trauma while also kind of knowing that you're going to be asked about it?
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I definitely know what you mean. It's, so Tim and I were really fortunate in the sense that when this happened, we were together. And I say fortunate because, we could have been with our families or with our other support system, but being together, we were together to work. We had projects. We're in the middle of finishing right now, and we lost the ability to create. And we've spent a few weeks now just being together and kind of digesting and just going through like the I don't even know how to frame what it's like going through this right now, because it's, and I know Tim and I have talked about this, and we both kind of landed in the same place where we were not expecting this to affect us in this way. Like this, like so many people are saying right now, this is not a surprise. This is something that we have known is there. And, people have been saying it for decades. But knowing something and then having to show it to the rest of the world in real time, to have it be believed, I didn't know how that was going to affect me. And like, I think this is the first time that we've talked about this at all in any interviews. And I still don't know what to say. It's something that I think we're very much still going through and bracing ourselves right now, because I mean, it's just like, this isn't over. We're in the middle of this.
Tim, anything you want to add to that? Anything at all?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just that, a lot of the same thing what Bear said. It's just like only thing that I've been doing outside of me and Bear talking about is talking with my family about it, and like, just kind of going over different protocols of what we're going to do, and moving forward. I didn't think I would ever deal with this in my lifetime. Let's put it that way. I never thought that this would have to be something, because like it was hard to deal with when we'd hear about it. Like as a kid growing up, like, I used to go play, because we used to have snow snake tournaments by the Mushel, which is our residential school in Brantford. And it's a cultural center now. There's a museum, there's all types of stuff. And my family, I had 2 family members that worked there, and I used to go visit them all the time. And so like, yeah, it's heavy. It's very, very heavy. And like, it's just like, I don't know. I was like, all I can do is just kind of like, as it happens, deal with it. And that's kind of where we are right now. And it's really hard to be honest, to anything else other than grieve at the moment.
Well, listen, we've been talking so much about like the journey of the band, which has been really fun for me today to talk about the journey all the way up. And I mean, Bear, I'll go to you on this. I'm going to go to, just so you know, Tim, I am going to go to you on this too. So get ready. But I mean, you've experienced so much since co-founding A Tribe Called Red. And, as you close that chapter and you move on with the Halluci Nation, what's the biggest difference between the person you were back then and the person you are now in this band?
Wow. I mean, there's so much. There's been a lot of growth over the past, really, I mean, even just over the past year or two, that I can say, yeah, actually, this is something I've been thinking about a lot, is looking back at the person that I was when this started, and the person I've been through it, and kind of on this side of it now. I think there was always a sense, because of the way that I grew up with my family and the arts and everything, and I was always like, I can do this. I can deal with it. I can do whatever it takes to make this work. I can tour, 90 or whatever, however many days of the year, 300 days of the year, and I can, I can get through it. I'm strong. My family taught me how to do this. The show always goes on no matter how we feel. And now I know I can't. Now I know that I have to take care of myself. I know that I have to take care of Tim, and he's got to take care of me. And it's not just about powering through everything because this is what's in front of me.
That's beautiful. That seems like a nicer way to live. You know what I mean?
Being nicer to yourself, I think, is something I've really learned over the past year.
That's beautiful. Tim, how about you?
Oh man. It's been a learning experience. You have to realize I joined Tribe it was like late April, early May of 2014, and we played Bonnaroo. And my second show ever was in front of 8,000 people. Uh, so it's like it's been like my first 3 months in the group. We played Bonnaroo, Field Trip, and like Coachella. So it's just like it's just this big thing where I rode a wave for so long, and it was kind of unconscious. I was just head down, grinding and making it work. And now I feel a lot more. I feel a lot more where I can like put my head up and look at what we've done and um, take ownership of it and dream, because dreams for us are like very possible, and like all of these things that's happened over the last 6 years, 7 years since I've been in the group. It's been like a masterclass of learning electronic music or just learning music in general. I mean, we got to meet John Trudell, and we got to meet Malcolm Cecil, who's the inventor of Tonto. And you know what I mean? Or we've gotten to sleep on docks in northern Norway, listening to nothing but the ocean and playing for an Indigenous festival for out there. You know what I mean? Like the amount of people that we have came in contact with who we adopted in as friends and family have been I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just been great. It's been great talking with everybody like over all around the world, keeping tabs on everybody. But the biggest thing that I think I learned out of all this thing, and the difference between what I was then and now, is that, I I guess I was a really big dreamer back then, and it's good to know that it still hasn't changed now that we're going forward. But it's nice to know that those things that you dream about can come true.
It's what a perfect way to end things. I feel of course, a great love for the 2E, and I'm so excited for this next chapter. And thanks for coming on today to talk to us about it.
Hey, it's so good to be back on and chat with you again.
Thanks, guys. Beer Witness and Toolman are members of the Halluci Nation. Their latest album is called One More Saturday Night, and it's out July 29th.